On tonight's episode of How to Catch a Chaser, we'll learn how to identify one. Do they have white monster? Do they talk about Hunter Schafer? Did they immediately mention Euphoria after talking about Hunter Schafer? Did they say that they love how trans girls are just different from cis girls and they only like trans girls?
You see how this looks, right?
Okay, let's talk about chasers. Um, Being early trans makes it feel like chaser is this like validating thing that's like good, and oh look, he thinks I'm pretty, and well yeah, that's person thinks you're pretty, that you're not crazy for liking that. However, if a person only wants trans girls and not cis girls, do you really think that they see you as a girl? I would argue they don't, and that's why they only date trans girls, especially if they only date trans girls and men. Because it's like, why? That's a great question to ask. Always is why. Say that to everything, please. Why is the best reason, the best question to ever ask. It's an amazing question. Okay, let's talk about chasers in the sense of what's so bad about them. Why are they stigmatized like this? Chasers aren't great at accepting no. That's just a very common trait of theirs, and that leads to dangerous situations. And I don't want any of you being in dangerous situations. And I know a lot of people would make this a big section and go through the list. That's enough. You being in dangerous situations is enough of a reason why they're bad. So they're bad. Cool. Let's move on. How to identify one. Okay, so there's no like rule book, obviously, but there are a lot of telltale signs. I've definitely developed my own ones. Yeah, here they go. Okay. Do they only talk in trans language and talk about trans celebrities and talk about trans Twitter and everything they mention is like trying to appease to your transness? Yeah, that's a huge red flag. Huge. It's like that white guy that when he meets a black girl will only talk about like historically and culturally black topics and people and everything. And it's like you're trying to appease to their culture to show, look, I'm not dangerous, haha. But you are. You're just playing up to that. It's okay if they have a slight interest. It is what it is. If you're left wing, you're probably gonna have slight interest. It's cool. However, if it's a core part of what they talk about, that is problem. Okay, if they're hyper obsessed with femboys, like Finsta, just femboys in general, but I know one of the really common ones is Finsta. If they're hyper obsessed with them, it's like a big one. Like you're hyper obsessed with Finsta and you want to go out with a trans girl. And I'm not saying that Finsta isn't trans, they're gender fluid. But what I mean by that is Finsta started out as a femboy. And if they were like, oh yeah, I've been following Finsta since back in the day, Finsta was a dude. Finsta identified as a guy at that point. And so it's just learning to be like, hey, isn't that weird? That's a great part of figuring out. Is just being like, hey, isn't that weird? Yeah, okay. If they go too quickly to sexual compliments, like if their compliments always give sexual, like cis girls often get, oh, you're so pretty, or you're so beautiful, stuff like that. Guys don't feel like they can go straight out the gate with it. But if they're being sexual straight out the gate, that's weird. And if they're referring to your parts that are not presenting in the same way, you know what I'm talking about. That's weird. That's really weird. You should avoid that. That's weird. Okay, next. In general, if you met them on Grindr, probably. I mean, you can't even be surprised at that point because it's like, it's designed for men. Simply put, it's designed for men who want men. And so, you meet someone on there, you can't really act surprised when they're a chaser. You know? Because why are they going for women? Obviously, bi men exist and everything, but I'm saying like, if they're on this app specifically for men, why are they going for you? And I'm not saying you can't have a healthy relationship off Grindr. You completely can. I'm just saying it's a high risk place, and you need to accept that when you're on it. That's just the facts. Okay, next. If you know any other trans girls that are also talking to him, especially if he says you're the only one he's talking to, huge red flag, because of the few trans girls you know, he's talking to them. That's weird. That's crazy. That's red flag. Okay, next. If they in any way apply that trans girls are just better. There's a few reasons why this is terrible. One, is, what do you mean? Cis girls are girls, trans girls are girls. What do you mean they're better? We're not like different breeds. And okay, we can enter that in a different video, but what I mean is we're women at the end of the day. That's our defining factor. I have more in common with a cis woman than I have with a cis man, and a lot of people don't understand that, but it's true. And so when you say we're just better, what do you mean by that? And then the next part is we don't have to, put trans girls up on a pedestal by knocking down cis girls. That's not necessary. It's not cool. It's not fun. I know you might get this feeling of, oh, these people that have always had exactly what I want, they prefer me to them. That's cool. No, it's not. It's not. They're being misogynistic. Yeah. And I know a lot of people be like, that's transphobic to say it's misogynistic. No, it's not. It's misogynistic because there's a reason why they're saying trans girls are better than cis girls. It's because they hate women and they don't see you as a woman. And which goes back to my original point. Literate transphobia, please leave. Just done. That's a chaser. Okay. Then, if they subscribe to mostly trans girls on OF or Twitter, look, you can do what you want, but if it's only trans girls, that's something that was done on purpose. That's not an accident. That was done on purpose. And that is a huge red flag. And you should be like, hey, why are you only talking about trans creators? And following trans creators, that's kind of weird. And yeah, you should be very wary of that, even if they manage to talk their way out of it. In general, my feeling is trust your gut. Your gut is there for a reason. If your gut is saying, hey, I'm really uncomfortable, I prefer if we stop talking to this guy. Trust your gut. It's there for a reason. Don't try to push on. Don't try and be like, oh, well, maybe after a while the feeling will go away. No, don't push on. Okay? That's your body's way of saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable. Please, can we not do this? Follow that, okay? Now, that's it from me. But if you have any comments, questions, video ideas, anything, comment them down below. Cool.